viewers, my name's Kara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we are talking about firsts and creating rituals and spells for ourselves. There are two questions this week from two different people, and the questions will be in the description of this video so you can read them. But the first is how to make your own ritual or spell, like a unique one that works well. And the second says, I have never done a ritual, group or solo, but I have great interest in it. I was wondering if you have any advice on how I should go about my first one. I was also wondering if you would say which is better to do as your first ritual, group or solo. So my first ritual, or what I consider my first ritual, the first thing that I meant to be a ritual, was solo. It was silly. I did it because I felt like I needed to, but it was really before I knew how it worked. However, I wouldn't change that experience for the world because I learned so much from it. I normally like to wait until I know absolutely everything about something before I will even give it a try. But in the case of your spiritual path, especially this type of one, I completely disagree with my own tendency. I say jump in and do something. At the time of the ritual, I felt like I was doing everything wrong, quote unquote. And this was years ago, but let me read you what I wrote about it at the time. It's so funny. Okay, here we go. My first real ritual was a complete failure. I thought I was doing okay until the very end when I realized I did not know how to close the circle. I looked it up in my book and found out that I had broken the circle to go get both the book and my broom. But that was okay, because then I read that I cast the circle widdershins backwards. So I never really even cast it, and the widdershins brought bad luck. During the ritual, I told the goddess I never felt like I left this plane. Turns out I didn't. I also told her that I was serious about this when I didn't even know the first thing. This will take some serious work. Now, obviously I learned a lot of things by trying it and fumbling through it. I learned how to really take the time and prepare everything that I might want to have with me in ritual if I don't want to have to leave the circle to go get it. I learned that I was searching for a feeling that I didn't get with that first ritual. So now, when I do ritual, about a decade later, I know what it feels like when I feel that I've truly made a connection. I learned terminology, and after a while of more reading and more practicing, I learned not to take it so seriously. I do take my path very seriously, but I mean in the way of, oh no, I cast the circle wrong. As I said in my video last week, there are now very few things that I would call wrong. And another entry later on, from a year later, says, I just finished an improv rededication ritual. I didn't write down any notes from my dedication ritual, the one where I chose a gift for myself to represent my dedication and blah blah blah. I still have that gift and I keep it handy, but I don't have notes from that. This is a different one. Just finished an improv rededication ritual. It was terrible. I didn't plan anything and I had no idea what to say. I haven't done a ritual in probably a year. Basically, I just tried to reassure them and myself that even though I can't observe the way I would like, this is truly my chosen path. My incense is going haywire, wait a moment, ... Okay, nothing's wrong, it's just a faulty stick. Yes, I wrote things like that in my diaries. Either way, that was even worse than my very first ritual. I'm going to start that Book of Shadows ASAP. At the time, I did not use this book as my Book of Shadows, so it's got journaling and poems and things that I used to write in the beginning of it, and then it kind of gradually became a Book of Shadows in the sense that it's where I put different little things that I want to remember, like recipes, prayers, spells, stuff like that, and then I have these other books that I'll get to later. And why was that ritual terrible that I just read about? Because I was too concerned with doing things the right way than with doing something that really felt right to me. I didn't feel confident enough with my own ability to improv yet, but now I still improv a lot, and even the simplest ritual is very, very meaningful to me. Now, my ritual notes sound a little more like this. From my shadow work journal. This is the journal that goes along with the work that I'm doing with the book In the Shadow of 13 Moons, so each one is an activity that the chapter covers, so it's worded like that. I just tried out a circle as I wrote above, even though I skipped the initial cleansing because I'm in my dorm room, and then I consecrated with sound by clapping my hands within the already cast circle. It was a bit backwards, but it worked. I used the first chant and at first stood in place and just turned around. Then I repeated it walking around the room, and I definitely like that better. The pace of my steps added to the energy going into the ground. So as you can see, now my notes are a lot more like, okay, this is what I liked about this ritual, this is what didn't work for this ritual. Instead of just an overall reaction, I actually write down like what's going on in it and what I liked and didn't like so I can change it or keep it for the next time. In the circle, I just offered a little water for mystery and said a prayer from my book of shadows, then I released the circle and I found I wanted words to say. So I came up with them on the spot and then I wrote them down in the journal. When I finished that 3 times, my left hand, which had been held out to receive the energy, tingled. I grounded it as usual. Overall, a Widdershins circle is not too harshly different for me, probably because I cast circles so rarely anyway. I'm glad to be catching up. So, huge difference from that first entry where I said, oh no, I did it backwards and it didn't work, and now I'm purposely working with Widdershins circles, so it's pretty good. And then there was another really cool shadow circle that I did for one of the activities, and I really liked it, so here's a bit of the notes from that. My first lesson for this ritual was that seeing the moon is not important. Oh, the activity was learning how to draw down the dark moon. My glasses smudged and would not clear, so I took them off and set them on my mat. I wore boots and a dress. The dark here is darker than at school. I could see even less. I sat for a while to adjust, and when ready, I cast circle, called quarters and deity as usual. I chose a spot to draw down the moon, first standing, then sitting. It took a long time for me to get over seeing, and then I felt the dark thread of heavy purple energy flowing into my third eye. I moved it to my crown. I felt heavy, so I'm just like writing down things that I experienced, things that I remember, how I actually did it. This was a really fun ritual, and I have all these little notes of like fun things that I did. I had a lot of fun with it. I was outside, I was dancing around, like stomping around. I came up with bigger movements for the elements that remind me of Tai Chi or element bending from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I came up with a new chant and dance for grounding power, which I really enjoyed. So I put that kind of stuff in there, and then this is my non-shadow work book. I have some notes from my Litha ritual, which are just kind of like, I went to the beach, I lit my candle, I did this, I did that, I played in the lake. This one, again, is just how I did it. I cast the circle Widdershins because it was a waning moon at the time. I used my usual shadow casting, called the elements and deity as usual. I asked the elements for stability and roots, ability to flow with changes, find what I'm passionate about, the ability to share with others. I asked for guidance and the ability to really practice the elements of Wicca that I know in theory, blah blah blah. I visualized the elements, I did a little meditation, and then like any kind of insight that I came up with during that I wrote down here. Yeah, so as you can see, my ritual notes have really changed and I've become a lot more at ease with it, which comes with practice, which is why I'm gonna say my main advice is to just do it. Those were all solitary rituals, and I have done some things with groups. I did some activities with a group of friends when I was young, like before all of these. I did do some group things. Pendulum work with some girls, energy work before I even knew what it was, and I was like guiding meditation circles on the playground. Again, at the time I didn't really consider it that, but that's basically what it was. Visualization work and stuff. And I've had like a crystal cleansing party with people, but I've never really done a ritual in a group until Pagan Pride, which was a very informal, eclectic thing. And I think group exploration is great, so if you have friends that you can do that with, by all means, go ahead. But I would not wait to start practicing ritual until you have a group. So if you don't have a group right now, just go ahead and do it alone. I wouldn't wait for that. I think it's better to take the time and start having the experiences sooner so that you can pile on those experiences and have your different opportunities to work on it and your failures and successes. So I can't say which is better, group or solo. I think it's just better to go ahead and do it sooner rather than later. As for how to go about it, look at what other people do, maybe read up on what different paths consider to be their basic ritual outline, and then kind of adapt it from there to suit you. Fill it in with things that are meaningful to you, as Rich said in his video yesterday. This brings me to the other question of how to create a ritual or spell that works well for you. I've always started with a basic outline from someone else just to give me an idea so I didn't feel totally lost. You don't necessarily have to do that, but from there I just kind of plug in whatever tickles my fancy. If I look at someone else's circle casting words and I don't like it, I alter it as much as is needed until I feel that it works for me. I used to only walk the circle and visualize it, but this year I've realized that I want words to say, like I said in that journal entry. So now, through working through that book, I had to come up with a casting and a quarter calling and stuff like that as part of the activities, and now I use those in all of my circles because I really like that, and I've just discovered that through practice. I feel more of a connection with the circles where I say things out loud than when I just keep it in my head and visualize it. So you'll find stuff like that out by doing it and trying it different ways, and try a way that you don't think you'll like just to see if you really don't like it. I also said in one of those entries that I discovered that I like walking around the circle instead of standing still, and so just things like that. Stuff that you can't really possibly know ahead of time whether you'll like it or not. You can probably guess, but you really don't know until you just get up there and do it. I used to not cast circle unless I was doing a formal ritual. I didn't do it for spell work, and now I cast circle almost every time just because it is good practice, and I'm kind of getting better at it now because for so many years I didn't do many formal rituals, so I had very few circle casting opportunities or experiences, and now I've done it a lot more, so I'm way more familiar with what I like. My quarter calls literally sound like they came out of the movie The Craft. I literally say, "Hail to the guardians of the watchtowers of blah blah blah," and that's because that was an outline that was given to me through the form of the movie. I tried it out, even though I was like, this is gonna sound so ridiculous because it's from a movie, but it turns out that it really resonates with me, and so I've added different words to it. I say 2 key words for each element. Like when I welcome them, I will say like earth, powers of something and something. I like to strength and guidance. Fire, I might say passion and innovation, something like that, and it might be the same 2 words every time, or it might just be whatever I feel that day. I pick 2 words because that's just something I like to do. So I kind of have like an outline with fill in the blanks, and then I fill in the blanks. Same thing when I invite deity into the circle. Sometimes it might just be goddess, I invite you, god, I invite you. Other times I get fancier and I might add on things. Goddess of the moon, she who flows in the rivers and sways in the trees, I invite you. God of the hunt, he who runs ahead of the pack, I invite you, and stuff like that. But I don't get fancy like that very often, but I do sometimes, just when I feel like it. Then, after I do all that, I would do any number of workings, whatever I'm doing that day, whether it's a specific spell that I wanted to do or just a celebration. I sing songs, I dance around, I recite poetry, I say prayers, I meditate. Sometimes I literally just sit down and talk to goddess and god and ask them for guidance or tell them what's going on or something, look for messages. And so it really depends on what the thing is that's happening that day, whether it's like really celebratory and really dancey, or I love dancing, or whether it's just me talking for a while, you know, to a lit candle. Ritual can really be whatever it is for you, and then if you're working in a group, it's whatever the group wants it to be. It's whatever that group decides upon. And so when I do work with other people, which I hopefully will be doing a little bit more of here soon, it's just a matter of, you know, sitting down and saying, okay, well, what do you think for this part, and do we all agree on that? Okay, cool, yeah, we can do that. Or no, I don't like that so much, let's change this a little bit, let's make it a little bit more common for us. Okay, good. And then Rich talked about the simple feast in his video, which I do a simple feast, and he talked about what to do when it's like, oh, I don't have anything, I just have water. I have done a simple feast literally with just a bottle of water, like my water bottle that I drink from every day and bring to work, my little green one, and a peppermint candy. I've done that several times actually, but whatever it is, I always eat/drink a little bit of it myself and then use the rest of it as an offering. And I always say, may you never hunger, may you never thirst. Even if I don't have anything, I would still say those things and offer up that kind of wish. I've only really had less than simple feasts at like big Sabbath celebrations with other people where we've made cookies or we made bread or we made cider. Like last year for Samhain with the UU Club, we used locally made organic apple cider, and we all shared half of an organic apple and then we buried the rest. So it all depends on the ritual. Then after all that happens, I release those that I have called into my circle, and then I open my circle and ta-da! And then I write about it. Or I might write about it the next day, but whatever. Sorry this video's long, this is the last part. As for spells, I go about creating them the same way. As I create ritual, I start with a basic outline, and then I add to it, or I change it to make it work for me. Think about what it is that I want to accomplish with the spell, and then I look up ways to do it. So I would think of, like, what element would I use? What color would I use? Do I want to use a candle? A ribbon? Is there an herb or an oil that I have handy that would help me? If not, I don't worry about it. If I don't have it, whatever, I find something else. I create my spells based on the symbolism of, like, what am I trying to accomplish and what symbols portray that to me, because I love symbolism. So I started looking at examples, just like ritual. I started by looking at examples of spells that other people do, and often I don't agree with the way they've worded it, so I just change it. Someone asked me a while ago to do a video on my personal channel about petition magic spells with the elements, which are something that I do a lot, and I will do that video eventually. I just haven't yet. I do have a video on my channel of a flower affirmation, which is just another kind of genre of spell that I do frequently, where I just go for a walk and on my way I collect things from nature to use, and then I create a spell based on what I have. I do recommend the book Write Your Own Magic by Richard Webster, especially if you like written magic, like writing out words. But basically I would, and I still do, look at what other people have shared in books, on their blogs, on their videos, things like that, just to get an idea and then adapt it to fit you. And then above all, try it out, because that's the only way that you're going to really be able to tell if it connects for you, and you're going to be able to feel it out and then change it until something fits. Yeah, so I'm sorry that was long, but I hope that the excerpts kind of made up for that, and I will see you in a couple weeks because next week is subs week. So until then, thank you very much for watching, blessed be, and goodbye!